For more resources, visit rymonline.org.
The Local Youth Worker is a daily podcast that's centered on 5 questions each week. Ranging from the practical to the professional, we're looking for answers to the questions you're asking. Whether you're in full-time, part-time, or even volunteer youth ministry, this podcast is for you.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We've been talking to Kristen Hatton all this week. We looked at encouraging truths yesterday. If you missed those, I'd encourage you to go back and just think about the gospel and communicating that in the home. Today, Kristen, I'm asking you the question, just as a parent, what advice would you give youth workers in the area of discipling teenagers? And this is something we want to remind youth workers often, that they need to be, coming alongside parents in youth ministry. So just what's some advice that you would give us?
Yeah, that's actually a really timely question, as I've just returned from Rooted's Leadership Summit. And Rooted's philosophy, which I wholeheartedly subscribe to, is that youth ministers or the youth ministry is just one of 3 partners in shepherding a child or a student. So at least equally important, if not more so, is also the church and the parents. So there was a great article on the Gospel Coalition last week, although when this is airing, you might have to go reference this. It was a young adult wrote about the important role of the church for long endurance in the Christian walk and intergenerational wisdom and discipleship. I just thought it was great because without the larger context of a church, a student's connection often only lasts as long as they are part of the youth ministry or the college ministry. So if they haven't seen the beauty of the church and their need for it and the church's need for them, then so often our students, once they graduate out of youth ministry, statistics show us 70 to 80% of those kids abandon the church. So there has to be that connection to the church. And so I definitely, want to see youth ministries incorporating their kids into the larger body, whether, encouraging obviously worship, but bringing the family and volunteers of all different ages. And then the parents' role in developing a child spiritually, that should be obvious. But in today's culture, parents are so accustomed to outsourcing everything. So, whether that's specialized coaching for your baseball pitcher or tutoring or the college prep classes, manners, it doesn't matter. We parents outsource everything. And so I think a lot of times that's the same mentality they have towards the spiritual development of their kids. They think, I'll drop them off at youth group on Wednesday night and they're good. But if the gospel is not being talked about at home and what they are re-emphasizing, then it's not going to sink in the same way because our kids are watching, and very likely, even if they're hearing something at youth group or at church, if it's not being modeled in the home, then that's not how they're going to turn out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something, just referencing the outsourcing comment that you made. I know just, I want to say a couple of weeks ago as well on the Gospel Coalition, and I can't remember the name of the person on the podcast, but she was talking about, I think the catechism, the New City Catechism that the Gospel Coalition has produced, and she was speaking from the context. Her context was over in the United Kingdom, but she said that I think research was showing that parents spend about 37 minutes a day with their children and quality time because they just seem to be outsourcing to so many different things. And so, yeah, the same can carry over into the church of just, and parents, obviously most are working and just feel so busy and feel that they just don't have time and feel ill-equipped. And so, they start to outsource just the spiritual formation of their children. But again, that's where youth workers can hopefully come in and come alongside parents and can be a resource for parents, just in the discipleship of their students.
Yeah, it really does need to be a partnership, but parents need to be trained. And I think, the teenagers live with them, so they may have more parenting experience than the youth leader, especially if it's a youth pastor that's young, that doesn't have their own teenagers yet. However, parents, I think, feel very ill-equipped. I mean, they don't have a good grasp of what the gospel is. And so I think, having training type seminars with them, or small groups, or connecting parents, I mean, just anything that can be done to help bring them in and provide kind of training opportunities for them. Parents are also so fearful. They're fearful of what other people are going to think, if their kid messes up. They don't know what to do, especially if it's their oldest child. So, I think they would appreciate, extra help. Of course, they may be too busy to come get it, but that's a whole nother aspect. But any way that the youth pastor can help bring the parents alongside and as a part of the ministry, and encourage family time. Because like you said, families don't spend a lot of time together. So sometimes I think the over programming, even at church, is not a healthy thing for the family.
Absolutely. And that's something, obviously we know there are extracurricular activities left and right, and there's so much that can divide the family and pull them away. But we also need to, as the church, like you're saying, take assessment of that as well, and realize that we do, youth ministries can be guilty of just over programming and having multiple things during the week. And I know that's something, speaking back to when I was on staff at a local church, of just trying to, at different times of the season, looking at, typically when school was starting back up in August, or when it was winding down in December and exams are going on, or May as well with graduations and exams, trying to pull back on the activity that we had, and to cancel various things, and just try to, encourage that, to say, hey, look, take advantage of the fact that, we don't have large group this week. And so be together as a family. And I know that there were times where I got pushback for that because, as a youth worker, parents kind of saw you as, okay, you need to keep our students busy and you need to have those activities. But then I know there are other families that also appreciated that. So us being cautious.
And that's the perfect time to maybe give some type of, I want to say handout, but like some type of, I don't know, discussion thing that a parent could do around the table with their kids. Oh, we don't have youth group tonight, but look what you can do in your own homes.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent idea, and something, I think we've mentioned on this podcast, but Timothy Paul Jones is a professor at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and he had done some research and just said that parents often hear that they are to be the primary disciplers of their children, but they feel that the church fails in giving them tools to do that. And so just this conversation here hopefully is, encouraging youth workers to think of, okay, if we cancel an event like we're talking about, could we put together, an outline or a handout of a specific topic to, talk about over the dinner table, or as we're, driving them to soccer practice or whatever. But to think of, practical just tools that you can put in the hands of your parents to help them in the discipleship process. Those could be very helpful things.
Yeah, I think of it as kind of just redeeming the time, because like you said, a lot of parents have a lot of carpooling time, shuttling kids here and there. So how can we redeem that time? How can we make fruitful conversation? A lot of times parents just don't even know how to enter in. So any way that youth pastors can help them with questions is great.
Yeah, that's excellent. But yeah, again, just those pillars on Rooted's ministry. Would you say those 3 pillars again? Did you say there were 3 pillars?
Yes. Well, I said that is equally important, or to varying degrees, the youth ministry or minister, the church, and the parents. So a child needs all 3 of those in place. You can't just put it all on the youth minister, which unfortunately I think a lot of people do. The parents and the church need to be a major part of that.
Yeah, and it's been encouraging just to see the literature in the past few years encouraging, getting students more involved in the body of Christ, and not just kind of, okay, over in this one building to be, in youth ministry, but to be, more connected to the broader church. Because like you said, as they're growing up and graduating, they often graduate from the church, those who aren't more involved in the larger body of Christ. So I think that's very helpful.
Well, and I'll be honest, my daughter was shocked when she realized that a lot of her college friends, they still go just to like their college group. And one Sunday she went with them and she was like, well, when do you go to big church? And they're like, well, this is our church. Like she was floored. Like they literally had grown up, kids church, youth group church, they had never been integrated into the body. And these are 20-year-olds. So we've got to change that when they're still at home.
Yeah. And just as I'm sitting here talking to you and, being the director of resources for RYM, my mind's always thinking of that. But I know John Nilsson wrote a book called Faith That Lasts. And I can't remember the subtitle there, but Faith That Lasts is an excellent book that deals with this issue of just students growing up and leaving the church. And, kind of looks at some of the statistics and discusses that, but then also offers some helpful advice there. So that's definitely a book to pick up and check out. Anything else you want to add to any of this, Kristen?
No, thank you. Great discussion.
All right. Thanks a lot.